Umkhonto is Sizwe matters in South African history, and that is not up for debate. It was created because peaceful protest was crushed and it played a real role in making apartheid ungovernable. But here is the problem: MK was never designed to run a country. It was a military structure operating underground and in exile, built for sabotage and resistance, not for policy and budgets and service delivery or administration. That distinction matters in 2026. Honoring the struggle does not automatically translate into trusting a political organization to govern a modern state. The skills required to fight oppression are not the same skills required to manage electricity grids, public finances, education systems, or economic growth. MK answered to political leadership. It did not develop independent governing structures or institutions. So when people invoke MK as a governing signal today, we need to be honest about what that signal actually represents. It represents moral legitimacy rooted in the past, not proven administrative competence in the present. Respecting history should never mean suspending judgment about capability. If governance trust is the question, then history alone is an insufficient answer. The post 1994 reintegration of MK into the democratic state should have been the bridge between liberation and governance. Instead, it exposed how hard that transition actually was. Thousands of MK combatants were absorbed into the military and police services, but the process was uneven, it was rushed, and deeply flawed. Guerrilla experience didn't align easily with professional military hierarchies or bureaucratic systems. Rank disputes, training gaps, and cultural clashes became common. Many veterans were left marginalized or unemployed or politically mobilized without real institutional roles. That matters because it shows a pattern: symbolic recognition without structural preparation. The state honored MK morally, but failed to convert that honor into functional governance pathways. If reintegration into structured institutions struggled, it raises serious doubts about whether a party built around MK symbolism can suddenly produce disciplined, technocratic governance. Reintegration was the test run. It didn't fail because of bad intention. It failed because symbolism alone does not build institutions. That lesson hasn't been resolved. It has just been politically repackaged. After democracy, MK veterans didn't consolidate into a governance oriented force. Instead, veteran structures slowly drifted into factional politics. The MK Military Veterans Association became less about welfare and reintegration and more about political leverage, particularly aligned with Jacob Zuma's faction inside the ANC. Over time, this blurred liberation legacy with partisan defense of individuals and not institutions, and that shift is critical. Governance requires loyalty to rules, to systems, and accountability, not to personalities. When veteran organizations become political shields, trust erodes fast. The eventual attempt by the ANC to disband the MKMVA wasn't just internal politics. It was an admission that liberation structures had become destabilizing rather than constructive. This history matters because the MK party inherits that baggage. There's no clean break between liberation memory and factional mobilization. Instead of producing new leadership and policy depth or administrative discipline, the legacy has repeatedly been used as political armor. That is not a good foundation for governance. It is a warning sign of how symbolism can be exploited rather than transformed. The formation of the MK party in 2023 took that symbolic capital and turned it into a political brand. It worked electorally, especially in KwaZulu Natal, proving that liberation memory still moves voters, but electoral traction is not governance capacity. The party emerged quickly and it centered around Jacob Zuma with limited policy clarity, internal structure, or administrative bench strength. Legal disputes over the MK name, opaque candidate selection, and ongoing ethical controversies weakened its credibility almost immediately. No one is denying voter sentiment, but it is important to read the signals correctly. The MK party is strong on identity, but it is weak on systems. It relies heavily on Zuma era politics rather than cultivating younger leadership or technocratic depth. That raises a hard question. Is this a movement preparing to govern, or is it a vehicle to recycle unresolved political battles? When a party's legitimacy rests more on history than on plans, institutions, and people capable of executing policy, trust becomes fragile. Symbolism may win votes, but it does not run a state. If MK is asking to be trusted beyond symbolism, then it has to meet the basic demands of national governance. That means having clear policy positions, building institutional discipline, and having the ability to make hard trade offs. On core national questions, MK signals are weak or absent. On Starlink and national security, there is no clear stance showing the party is willing to prioritize sovereignty over short term connectivity wins or foreign corporate pressure. On defense, there's rhetoric about strength and independence, but no serious framework for alliances, deterrence, or long term security planning. Governance is not about posture, it is about planning. The same applies to wages, land, and small business. There is broad agreement that minimum wages are too low, that land is underutilized and local enterprises being crowded out. But MK has not articulated how it would execute these reforms within existing fiscal and legal constraints. Liberation credibility does not answer implementation questions. Governing a country means translating moral claims into policy instruments and budgets and timelines and enforcement mechanisms. Right now, MK's office stops at legitimacy, not execution. South Africans are not confused about what they want right now. They want sovereignty taken seriously. They want economic dignity restored and opportunity decentralized to the people who actually benefit the most from them. That means resisting foreign dominance where it undermines national control, including digital infrastructure. It means serious discussion about long term defense capability in a volatile global order. It means raising the minimum wage to a level that people can live on, not only survive on. It means accelerating land reform in a way that breaks concentration and unlocks productivity, not endless process without outcome. And it means prioritizing small South African businesses over dependence on multinational employers who can leave at any time. The problem for MK is political will and capacity. There is no evidence yet that the party has built the alliances, the technical expertise, or institutional discipline required to push these reforms through parliament and the state. Wanting change is not the same as being able to deliver it. National governance punishes improvisation. Without a credible execution pathway, promises remain symbolic, and symbolism does not raise wages, it does not secure borders, and it does not grow local industry. A governing party has to show where it is going, not just where it has been. One of the strongest signals against MK is its lack of visible generational renewal. South Africa is young, it's digitally aware, and economically frustrated. Yet MK's center of gravity remains anchored in liberation era leadership and unresolved ANC factional battles. There is little evidence of deliberate leadership development aimed at preparing younger, technically competent leaders to govern complex systems. This matters because the country's problems are not historical, they are structural and future oriented. Energy transition, automation, capital flight, and geopolitical realignment requires skills, not memory. When political movements fail to regenerate leadership, they become vehicles for return rather than renewal. That undermines long term trust. Voters are not only choosing who they believe, they are choosing who will still be capable 10 years from now. A party that cannot demonstrate internal succession planning or policy depth beyond personalities and institutional continuity sends a clear signal. It is organized around legacy preservation, not future governance. And I think that we can all agree that MK's historical role deserves respect. It earned its place in South Africa's story through sacrifice and resistance. But respect is not the same as delegation of power. Governance trust requires proof of capability, discipline, and readiness to serve the whole country, not just a memory or a constituency. The MK Party, as it exists today, leans heavily on symbolism while offering limited evidence of administrative competence, policy coherence, or institutional depth. Its emergence looks less like a new governing force and more like a re entry point for old political battles. That leads to the real question that voters should be asking: is this about building the next generation of leadership, or is it about restoring the influence of the past? This is a movement preparing South Africa for what is coming, or is it a vehicle for one more comeback? The struggle shaped the nation. The future will be shaped by good governance. Those are not the same thing. And confusing them carries real consequences for South Africa's tomorrow.